My name is Albert Dolan. I'm the Cathaoirleach of Galway County Council and a councillor for the Athenry-Oranmore Municipal District. It gives me immense pleasure to launch here today this film. This was filmed to commemorate 125 years of local government and dedicated service to the people of Galway. Galway County Council has a rich history, and this video intends to give you an insight into some of the stories and experiences that people have had throughout the years. Galway County Council has 125 years of service completed, and it has a lot more to do. Please enjoy this film.
Díomh is Misha Limo Canila, Príomhaimeanach Corla Cunda na Galway. Today we're acknowledging 125-year anniversary in local government in the country and also in Galway. You'll hear a number of different contributions from people who participated and who worked in Galway County Council in providing public services during that 125 years. This personalises a public service that Galway County Council has provided for its citizens in housing, in planning, in roads, and in the old district health boards in the area of health as well. And now I'd like to invite you to listen to the stories of past elected members and staff of Galway County Council who will share their memories and their contributions to public service in Galway, and leave you with the story that Galway is looking towards a bright future, and Galway County Council, as the largest public service organisation in the county, will play a vital and pivotal role in that bright future. Gurv Marguv.
My name is Eileen Ruan and I'm a Director of Service with Galway County Council. My career in local government started back in 1990. I'm 34 years working in the local government sector as of today. During a career of that length, you make great friends. The staff and the people that I've met along the way, that's what I absolutely have enjoyed the most. For me as well, the staff that have retired and spent their careers in local government, they have worked so hard to shape Galway into the fantastic county that it is today.
My name is Liam Hanrahan. I'm the Director of Economic Development and Planning in Galway County Council. I've been here for the last 5 years in this role and also in the role of Director of Housing. And I suppose a huge part of our work in Galway County Council is working with the elected members, whether that's local councillors, TDs or senators, and working with them on the issues that they bring forward for their local community. I'd like to introduce you now to the video of our staff and councillors of Galway County Council and welcome the opportunity to hear the stories and the input of our former staff and council members.
Is Michigan ní orta, but Corla Cunda mé as Canta Connemara on blian 1991 go dtí 2009. I joined the council in 1991, back in the dark ages. It was an interesting council, 30 councillors and 3 of us were women, but that was a huge improvement. There hadn't been a woman on Galway County Council for a long number of years before then.
Well, from when I started in Meath County Council to when I started in Galway County Council, there were a lot of changes, particularly in conditions of work, conditions of employment. There was a lot more emphasis on family-friendly working. There was flexi time, there was parental leave, there was term time leave. All of those things didn't exist in my previous life in Meath County Council.
And the other great change from the 1970s is the status of women within the council. So when I joined, around that time that equal pay came in and the marriage bar was lifted. So the status of women has changed immensely.
When the job came up advertised for Galway County Council, I said I'd apply. Conditions had changed because previously you couldn't fly once you were over a certain age, and that had changed. So I was able to apply to Galway County Council, and that's why I applied for the job.
Well, now I believe there's more women involved in local government, and as I ended up being the first woman chair of Galway County Council, Cathaoirleach Corla Cunda na Galway, it took 101 years for that to happen. There's been a number since, so that is great.
I joined the Department of Agriculture to work in public health and animal health, and I found the work interesting. And then this position came up in Galway and I applied for it. I wasn't that familiar with local authority ethos and services, but I got very familiar with it and I really enjoyed my work.
My mother had worked, previous to her getting married, in the council on staff. So when I did get elected, I was meeting some of the people she worked with still at that stage, which was lovely. And they were there counting the votes the day first time I got elected.
I remember my mother told me I should get a haircut before the interview. So I did. I went to a barber shop called Christie's on Eyre Square, and they looked askew at me and he said, what do you want? And I said, well, I'm going for an interview in the county council, so I need to shape up. And he said, leave that to me. He says, if you want to get the job, let me give you a right haircut. So he did, and I got the job.
I joined Galway County Council in 1995, having moved from Galway Corporation, where I had been from 1987. I was in charge of personnel for a number of years, and also corporate services and the library services, and they're some of the important background services that we provide. I was also responsible for water services infrastructure, the environment, emergency services, roads and transportation.
The main focus when I arrived in Galway County Council, the main focus was dealing with local abattoirs. At the time we had about 30 in the county. Since then, of course, a lot of them have closed. There was also dog control, horse control issues. The work has changed over the years, but especially with the advent of the Food Safety Authority, it became more focused on veterinary public health. But that has been the main focus of the work that I did with the council. I suppose one thing that has happened in my time, initially, Aileen Cust was the first woman to qualify as a vet in these islands. She was appointed by Galway County Council in 1908 as a local authority vet. I was the next woman to hold that position. And we now come full circle because the service has been subsumed into the Department of Agriculture at the end of this year. But one of the highlights really is the fact that we have been awarded the next veterinary college in Mount Bellew, and Mount Bellew has hosted several conferences on Aileen Cust. So it's a nice point at the end of this year.
And my job was to answer the Hatch. So when you answer the Hatch, there was a prospect that you could be asked a myriad of questions from housing loans, grants, sanitary services requirements. And gradually you learned how to respond to people. And it was always a sense of satisfaction when the day came that you could answer most questions without deferring to one of your colleagues in the room and saying, help me here.
One of the other changes, I suppose, has been the approach to dog control. Initially, it was a matter of control and picking up stray dogs and putting them down. The focus has changed a lot now to rehab and to working closely with local charities. We rehome all our dogs. In many years, we would have rehomed 100% of rehomable dogs.
So when I joined the council, there was no computers. Everything was ledgers, triplicate books, duplicate books. Everything was written out by hand. You had the old-fashioned calculator, which was used all the time. Now, you wouldn't see anything done by hand. It's all computers.
Well, definitely for somebody that came in as a shorthand typist, and that it was computers, because we were working on electric typewriters that were just new at the time as well. And if you made a mistake, it was very hard to correct it on the typewriter. I know there was typics there, but you could always see the mistake. And then when computers came in, you could actually see what you were typing. But it was a brilliant, brilliant move. Absolutely. It made such a difference.
The greatest changes I've seen, I think, have been the modernisation of local government. As through the years, technology was introduced for the improvement of delivery of public services, and it actually made the jobs more interesting to do.
The greatest changes I saw was when we went there first, everything was done on the drawing boards. We did all the work on drawing boards by hand, no computers. So we had to be very good at drafting, which we were.
The greatest changes I've seen were the technology and computers. When I joined the council initially, there was only one phone per office. because we had only about 5 or 6 lines coming into the council. Martin Keneally, he was a blind telephonist, and if you wanted a line outside the city, say to Clifton or Gort or Athenry or Tuam, you had to go through Martin to get the number. So he dialed it up and forwarded it on to you, and that was a major change.
I suppose the most memorable would be when we moved into County Hall. The old county building was there. It was knocked. We moved temporarily out to Lisbon and we moved back into County Hall in 1999.
Some of the memorable occasions that I can recall in Galway County Council were times I had to move office and then moving back to the main office eventually. I doubt if anybody has moved office as much.
I suppose there was an issue there earlier on that we were going to be moving out to a building, and we went out to see it, and it was just all little bedrooms. You'd have to knock 3 to make an office, and nobody was happy with it really. And then we did move out of our offices for a while until we got our new buildings back in 99. So we moved back in there and they were absolutely fabulous. And, everybody had office space and you weren't up on top of each other and you weren't tripping over lino that might have been torn and it wasn't repaired. But it was nice to move back in there.
We've also had changes to local government over the years. We had better local government and a further reform about 20 years later, which was putting people first. So there have been significant changes. And of course, the number of people employed in the service has increased.
My position from the word go was to be assigned to the housing department. And the housing and sanitary services section of the county council at the time was a large room with 2 large tables. One table was the housing department and the other table was the sanitary services and local authority housing section.
I always had an interest in politics, even though my former career was a member of the Garda Síochána for 35 years. But I always had an interest in it from day one. I've attended every election count since 1966, be it presidential, national or local. So I always had an interest in it. But being a member of the Garda Síochána, you couldn't get involved. You couldn't be a member of the party or you couldn't get involved in politics. So I had to keep all that at bay until I retired. And then the opportunity came when Noel Grealish, who was our TD, he asked me, would I run for the position of the co-option? And I went home and I discussed it with my wife, Margaret, and I agreed that I'd have a go at it at least for the year, because it was only a year to the next local election and see how it worked out. I did 21 years in all, as it turned out in the end, and I enjoyed every day of it.
Another memory I have of my time in the council was when they were closing the Tuam railway station and the railway line to Claremorris. The councillors were adamant that it should stay open, and they chained themselves to the railings of Galway County Council to highlight the point. And I think they stayed there overnight. They eventually got a meeting with Todd Andrews. I think he was the chief executive of CIE at the time. I suppose there would be 10 or 12 of them around the table up in Dublin, and they had this meeting. And just when the meeting opened, Mr. Andrews said, gentlemen and ladies, how many of you have travelled up to Dublin today on the train? And unfortunately, nobody had travelled on the train that day. So he said, enough said. So the railway line and the railway station was closed pretty soon after that. A decision, I think, that we all regret since. And hopefully in the not too distant future, the line will open again.
I've always been interested in railways and the contribution they can make to our economy and to the economy of County Galway. And I have always remained closely associated for about 40 years now with the entire resurrection, if you like, of the Western Rail Corridor, that railway from Mayo to Galway. The further opening of the railway between Galway City and Mayo has recently been decided by government, and that is going to bring the railway service back to Tuam, the largest town in County Galway, of 10,000 people and a huge surrounding population, or for people from South Mayo to commute to Galway. First time I came to Galway to be interviewed for my position in Galway County Council, I came by train from Claremorris.
My main reason for joining local government and also Galway County Council was it represented a good career opportunity at the time. I was very young when I joined. I had just come out of school. It was good to have a permanent pensionable position, and it provided good promotional opportunities and a career path, and I was lucky. I've been able to hold different positions throughout my career.
I joined the council in April 1980. The jobs I did was in roads all the time, really. I started off in transportation studies, which is the Eastern Approach Road over the Carib there. And that was my main job for the first few years.
My initial work was as a clerical officer, and that graduated in grades of clerical duties over the next 4 or 5 years. And I gained experience in the housing section, where I went out doing town clerk's duties, collecting rents where there were arrears of rents to be collected. And after about 5 years, I was given the opportunity of going temporarily to a section of the council that I had little knowledge of, called the County Development Team.
The driving licence section has been taken from the council altogether now. That's operated by the NDL instead now. That used to be operated. It was a kind of a one-stop shop. You wanted to do your motor tax, you could do driving licence, do all that together in the one place. But now only the motor tax has remained there.
Then I suppose later on we set up the community warden scheme, and the community wardens do a lot of on-the-ground work for council, like we'll say traffic and environment and all that kind of thing. So they'd be on the ground and they could investigate something. If there was a problem, you could ask them to go and investigate it. So that started off as a kind of a new scheme, and it actually is a brilliant scheme at the moment.
I was chairman of the Joint Police Committee for the last 5 years until I retired. And that gelled in very well with my former employment as a member of the Garda Síochána for 35 years. I was able to identify with both sides, from the public perspective as well as from the Garda perspective, where the difficulty from an administration on both sides, from both the council perspective and from the Garda perspective. I think it was a very good project to have the Joint Police Committee, and I'm very regretful of the changes that have been brought about now. I think it's taken away that particular power from the local councillors, because the councillors they're the focal people who bring the issues before the Joint Policing Committee, and yet their role is being diminished as a result of what's taking place at the moment.
We had to do in the first years, when we'd be doing a county development plan, we'd spend, I think the first time we did it, we spent something like 42 meetings going through it. And at that time, you didn't get August off. You had meetings in August. Now, I don't think any council in the country meets in August, but we did. But then we had a county development plan. I'd say it was around 99, 98, something like that. It was the second last Saturday before Christmas. We decided to have a meeting. That meeting started at 12 o'clock midday, and we finished at 2 in the morning. And then we had been going all day, and we had tea and biscuits, and I think they brought in sandwiches. And then about 7 o'clock, somebody said, "Now, lads, if you want us to stay here, you better feed us." And then there was a scramble to find somewhere that could take 30 plus people at short notice and feed us. But that did happen.
In the early 90s, I left the County Council and joined the Department of Finance as County Development Officer in Sligo. That was hugely interesting, but it was away from where I really wanted to be, was in Galway. So in 1999, I came back to Galway County Council as Director of Community and Enterprise, which at that stage was the equivalent of Assistant County Manager.
My whole time in Galway County Council, I worked in the planning office, where we dealt with planning applications and unauthorised development and produced the county development plan. During the Celtic Tiger years, 90,000 houses or dwelling units were completed annually. Nowadays, we're completing 28,000, 30,000 units. So that goes to show you we're building 3 times more houses that time. Less staff than Mayo County Council or Donegal County Council, who were equal councils to us. And we dealt with every single planning application in time, on time. So no application went by default. And that was great credit to the staff at the time.
One of the interesting things that happened was that a loggerhead turtle was washed up in a comatose state and rehabbed by the staff in the aquarium in Galway. The Irish Whale and Dolphin Group asked me would I provide veterinary assistance, which I was happy to do. Over the course of a year, we managed to rehab the turtle. She gained weight. And after a year, we had to bring her back to warm water. So I was able to convince Aer Lingus to fly Leona the turtle and myself and a member of staff out to Gran Canaria, where we successfully put a satellite tag on her and launched her back into the waters. And we were able to satellite tag and trace her. At the time, it was the longest recorded trace of an animal that had been released back into the wild.
I was lucky the year I was chair, there was a lot of libraries open that year. And as a teacher, I just loved the thought that we were opening such an opportunity up to people.
The one thing that I was very happy about was the pedestrian crossing that was put at the Maldron Hotel in Northmore. I worked on that for years, and thanks be to God, it came to happen. But there are other areas outside Lidl which I've been working on, and they haven't come to fruition yet. Hopefully they will sooner or later.
I'm very proud that one of the last things I did before I left Galway was secure the funding from the Department of Transport for Oranmore Railway Station, which is a joint initiative between Galway County Council and Éireann Rud Éireann.
Well, when I worked with Galway County Council, we had the Decade of Commemorations, and we had a major celebration in 2016 for the 1916 Rising, and doing work with the heritage groups and the community groups and assisting them. That was a major event.
I got the opportunity to be involved in some very significant projects, for instance, the Galway City Ring Road, which we were able to bring through planning stage and get planning approval, but which unfortunately was challenged legally shortly before I left. And I would hope in due course that that road will still be built. I was very lucky also to have been involved in the discussions that brought about the announcement by the IDA of Dexcom deciding to open up one of their major manufacturing facilities in Athenry. But above all, I was lucky to work with the calibre of people that I met over my years in Galway County Council.
The final words was I always enjoyed working in the council, and I worked in local improvement schemes where I met roles. That would involve going to the farms and such and doing surveys of roads for farmers and things. And I did that for many years, and I saw every part of the county do that.
Not everyone gets a phone call on Christmas Eve saying, I knew you'd be at home tonight, so now I can talk to you. You know, that doesn't happen. But it does happen if you're a public rep, and it definitely happens if you're a county councillor and you're local and you're beside them.
There have been dramatic changes in recent years, and I sense there will be further changes. That's the nature of life. But the core role of a local authority remains.
I had a wonderful career in Galway County Council, and I would recommend it highly to anybody.